Welcome back. I'm Pratap here. Today is 7th December 2024. In this video, I'm going to generate different supply demand zone reports useful to the premium subscribers. First, let me start with finding the stocks near demand and supply zones for different time frames, starting with half-yearly time frame. Stocks near half-yearly demand zone, we did not get any stock. Next, half-yearly time frame, stocks near half-yearly supply zone, we got one stock. I'm giving you only few seconds time to watch the report. I request you pause the video, study the report, and then you can proceed with the next reports. In case if you don't understand how to study this report, I request you complete our training lesson 21.1, that is part 1 of lesson 21. In that video, I have explained each and every column, their values, abbreviations, how you can draw the zones in TradingView by taking this leg in and leg out timestamps. All the concepts I have explained in that video. Please refer it. Okay, the next time frame is quarterly. Stocks near quarterly demand zone. One stock is filtered. Next, quarterly time frame. Stocks near quarterly supply zone, 7 stocks are filtered. Next time frame is monthly, stocks near monthly demand zone, 3 stocks are filtered. Next monthly time frame, stocks near monthly supply zone, we got 8 stocks. Next monthly time frame, price closed inside the monthly demand zone, and these monthly demand zones should not be pierced. So in the pierced count at monthly time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. That means the zone is not pierced. Let's filter. We got 15 stocks. Currently, price closed inside the monthly demand zones. Out of these 15, there could be some high probability set up monthly demand zones based on the monthly EMA Confluence. So let's further filter based on the monthly EMA Confluence. So in monthly time frame, monthly demand zone having monthly EMA Confluence filter is enabled, but EMA Confluence makes sense only in the trending market, but not sideways. So that's why in the trend, based on the zone violation calculation at monthly time frame, I am selecting up or down trend, but not sideways. Let's filter the stocks. We got 9 stocks. These 9 monthly demand zones are having high probability setups based on the EMA Confluence for the monthly demand zones. And currently price closed in the monthly demand zones. Okay, next. Monthly time frame, price closed inside monthly supply zone, and these monthly supply zones should not be pierced. So at the pierced count at monthly time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Now let's filter. We got 13 stocks. Out of these 13, there could be some high probability setup zones based on EMA Confluence. Monthly supply zones having monthly EMA Confluence. Let's further filter. EMA Confluence at monthly time frame, monthly supply zones having monthly EMA Confluence filter is enabled. And for EMA Confluence, the trend should not be sideways. That's why zone violation trend calculation at monthly time frame, I am selecting up or down. Let's filter. We got only 2 stocks. These 2 supply zones are having monthly EMA Confluence, and also these current price is closed inside those monthly zones, supply zones. Okay, next time frame is weekly. Because this is also end of the week, I will generate weekly reports, different weekly reports for weekly time frame. Stocks near weekly demand zone. Let's filter. 10 stocks are filtered. Next, weekly time frame. Stocks near weekly supply zone. 12 stocks are filtered. Next, weekly time frame. Weekly tested demand zones during this week. So these two demand zones, these two stocks having demand zones are tested during this week. Next, weekly time frame. Stocks having supply zones tested. Weekly supply zones tested during this week. We got a big number of stocks, weekly supply zones are tested, including Nifty 50 and Nifty Bank and Nifty Financial Services, Nifty Next 50. All these are all indices that is part of F&O. All these four are tested during this week. And a few stocks are currently closed inside the weekly supply zone. Some stocks are again tested and moving towards the demand zone that you can observe in the signal type. I am scrolling the list down. So total 40 stocks are filtered. Okay, next, weekly time frame. Let us find the stocks having newly created weekly demand zones during this week. Good number of weekly demand zones are created during this week. All these stocks are having newly created weekly demand zones. See, I'm not saying these are the new demand zones, what you are seeing on the screen, but majority of these demand zones are newly created demand zones. Sometimes you might be having LOTL demand zones, the one that appears near to the current price will be displayed in the report. Maybe the newly created demand zones might be below the LOTL zone, inside the LOTL zone. So that's why. But stocks are having newly created weekly demand zones, and majority of these stocks are weekly. Maybe one or two you may see LOTL zones, they might be inside. Because the one that might be newly created zone may not be the nearest to the current price. Maybe this list may not be showing that such kind of. But many of the stocks, all the stocks having 2/12/24 as a candle, that is this week's candle, 2/12. All the zones are newly created. See here 26/8/24. But this stock is having a newly created demand zone that is inside this pierced demand zone. LOTL might be inside this pierced. If you open the chart, you will be able to find newly created zone. Please always remember this. Sometimes you may get confusion why the zone is having missing newly created. This report always displays the zone having nearest to the current price will be displayed. Your new zone also may be nearest, but it is inside the LOTL zone, a little below the nearest zone. That way it might be missing. Okay, anyway, I am scrolling the list down. Further scrolling the list down. So total 43 weekly demand zones are created during this week. That indicates a bullishness in the market. But at the same time, many of these zones might have been closed inside the weekly supply zones also, in case. So those supply zones may violate because of these newly created demand zones. May or may not be. Maybe prices will again react. These newly created zones may be violated, and then trend changes will take place. That also might be possible. You have all possibilities are there. Okay, this is about newly created weekly demand zones. Next, weekly time frame. Let us find the stocks having newly created weekly supply zones. Now weekly supply zones are created during this week. New supply zones. Okay, next, for weekly time frame, let's find the stocks where price closed inside the weekly demand zone. Inside weekly, these weekly demand zones should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, at weekly time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Let's filter. We got 10 weekly demand zones where price closed inside these weekly demand zones. But out of these 10, there could be some high probability setup. Weekly demand zones might be available based on the EMA Confluence. Let's filter those stocks out of these 10. So in the EMA Confluence, weekly time frame, weekly demand zone having weekly EMA Confluence, and EMA Confluence makes sense only in the trending market, that is up or down trend, but not ranging, that is sideways. Sideways we have to eliminate those stocks having the weekly trend. So in the zone violation trend at weekly time frame, I am selecting trend as up or down trend. Those stocks only will display. Out of those 10 stocks, we got only 3 stocks. These 3 are high probability trade setup related zones based on weekly EMA Confluence. And trend is up, weekly trend is up in all the 3 stocks. Always the trend you have to look into LTF time frame for the current time frame you have selected. Current time frame I selected weekly. So the weekly trend is nothing but LTF. That way you should understand. Remember, these zones are not for taking the entries. The zones having weekly EMA Confluence on monthly time frame, weekly time frame, or daily time frame should be used as a HTF zones or ITF zones. And then you prepare your trade plans, either bullish trade setup or bearish trade setup or counter trend trade setup. Such kind of plans you will prepare. That way these zones will be helpful to you. Anyway, our software is displaying bullish and bearish trade setups for different income trades. But still, some people wants to plan on their own. Especially some people who land supply demand zones a long time. They may not be having any scanners at that time. Of course, even today also, we don't have any scanners that is providing you bullish and bearish trade setup related stocks for different time frames. Only few scanners I have seen, they draw the raw zones in trading view. Some private people have developed, they are just raw zones. What is the use of those zones? Drawing the zone is not important. A zone that is having high probability trade setup. A zone that is having high liquidity zone trade setup. A chart is having hidden zones. A zone is a zone that is responsible for trend changes like your TCO zones. Our software should identify such kind of high probability setup related zones or high liquidity related zones. Just drawing the zones, if you take a trade in that zone and it will violate, what is the use? You get loss. So that's why I don't really believe on those drawing the zones on the charts. That is not important. And moreover, drawing the zone should be on the dynamic basis is more important. That is what NeoSoftware special skill. TradingView does not support such kind of mechanisms. So people who develop the scripts, they always have disadvantages. Okay, anyway, these are the 3 stocks. Having weekly EMA Confluence for the supply zones. Demand zones, not supply zones. Entry zone is demand zone here. Price is closed inside the demand zone. Okay, next let us look for weekly time frame. Price closed inside weekly supply zone. And these weekly supply zones should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, at a weekly time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Let's filter the stocks. We got a big list. I am scrolling the list down. So total 56 stocks are filtered where price closed inside these weekly demand zones. Check if any of these stocks are having newly created zones. Sometimes they might be violated because of those newly created demand zones. We got a big newly created zone list is also available. It doesn't mean every newly created demand zone violates its opposing zone. There is no rule. But sometimes some stocks might happen. Some stocks reverse will happen. The newly created zones will be violated. Prices will be reversing from these supply zones, and the newly created demand zones near to these supply zones might be violated sometimes. Either thing will happen. But at least this kind of information will, when ambiguity situations, you will try to avoid such kind of stocks. Because either side may happen. When you don't have clarity, what you do? You don't take any risks in those stocks. So that's why this price closed inside the zone, stocks near newly created zones, they will be helpful to you. Okay, out of these 56 stocks, there could be high probability trade setup supported supply zones are available based on the EMA Confluence. Let's find them based on EMA Confluence at a weekly time frame. Because these are all the supply zones we are focusing, price closed inside the weekly supply zone. So that's why weekly supply zones are having weekly EMA Confluence. But during this EMA Confluence, we should eliminate sideways trade setup related trends. So that's why in the zone violation trend parameter at a weekly time frame, I am selecting only up or down trend but not sideways. Because EMA Confluence makes sense only in the trending market, not in the sideways market. Now let's filter out of 56. How many we got? These are the first 15 stocks. And a few more stocks are there below. I am scrolling the list down. So total 22. Out of 56, we got only 22 stocks. In these 22 are high probability setup weekly supply zones. Because all these supply zones are having weekly EMA Confluence. Now you can plan your trade setups. If the trend is a downtrend, weekly trend, you can look for a bearish trade setup by using weekly zones as a HTF zone or a high TF zone. If the trend is up, you can plan for counter trend trade setups. Of course, our students are yet to learn those concepts. It will take some time for you to understand those concepts or to learn those concepts because you are yet to get perfection on bullish and bearish trade setups. Without getting perfection, going to the counter trend trade setups will create a lot of issues for you at this stage. Experience is required. That's why slowly I am teaching these concepts for you people. But some people might have learned, some experienced people, they might be having idea. Those people can use these zones for planning your counter trend trade setup related stocks. Okay, this is about the prices closed inside the weekly demand zones. We can also filter the stocks based on zone confluence also. So weekly zone having monthly zone confluence, how many stocks are available? Let us filter. So weekly time frame. Entry zone should be weekly demand zone. And this weekly demand zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, weekly time frame, I am setting minimum value 0 and maximum value 0. And this zone should be having confluence with monthly zone. That's why monthly zone also should not be pierced. That way we get a perfect combination. So weekly and monthly should not be pierced zones, but the zone that displays on the screen should be weekly zone. But that zone should have a confluence with monthly zone. Which zone we are looking for? Demand zones. That's why weekly demand zone having confluence with monthly demand zone filter I am going to enable. This is the filter. With this filter, we got 5 stocks. In these 5 stocks, these weekly demand zones are having confluence with monthly demand zone. And these weekly zones or monthly demand zones are not something wrong here. Some mistake I did here. Where I did this mistake? Price motion I set. Okay, sorry for my mistake. In a wrong filter I set. That's why I am seeing in the report. See here, these zones are pierced. How these zones, pierced zones, got into the report? All of a sudden my heart stopped by seeing this. Because all these days software is working perfectly. How we got these zones? I wondered. Okay, anyway, I quickly realized somewhere I messed up. This is the one. They should not be kept as a. Let me set. Sorry for my mistake. By saying I didn't properly read, I thought it is pierced. Actually, price motion. Price motion is a different concept I developed. It is like a what to say, GPS coordinates used, right? Such kind of mechanism I implemented in supply demand zone. I invented a new concept that time being, let me don't focus, because this is the most advanced level people. This kind of reports will be useful. For you people, just forget. Highly professionals in supply demand zones, those people can understand. For them also it is a new concept, but they can understand when I give explanation. Time being, leave it. So I have to use in pierced count. This is the pierced count. So here weekly zone I am setting 0, 0. Monthly zone 0, 0. Now let me filter the stocks. See, now we got a big list. So in all these stocks, weekly demand zones, they are not pierced. See, the green color columns count is 0. Maybe supply zones might have been pierced. See here supply zone is pierced, but not demand zone, because we set our filter for the demand zones. So these weekly demand zones are part of the monthly demand zone. Weekly zone confluence with monthly zone. So let me scroll the list down. So total 54 stocks are filtered. In all these 54 weekly demand zones are part of the monthly demand zone. Now let us further filter this list by looking for even next level zone confluence. That means weekly, monthly and quarterly demand zone. Weekly zone is part of the monthly zone. Monthly zone is part of the quarterly zone. How these reports might be useful, you might ask. The QIT trade setup, quarterly income trade setup, any long-term investors when they are want to plan trades, this kind of information will be useful to them. So now let me add quarterly zone confluence, weekly, monthly and quarterly demand zone confluence. So for that, quarterly zone also should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, already monthly and weekly we selected. Quarterly also I am setting 0, 0. All the 3 zones should not be pierced, but they should have the zone confluence. It is a perfect combination. So in the demand zone confluence, total 3 filters I have to set. Only one filter is enabled here, weekly with monthly zone confluence. Next, weekly demand zone with quarterly demand zone confluence is also enabled. Next, monthly demand zone with quarterly demand zone confluence filter is also enabled just now with all the three filters. Now list is reduced. Earlier you got some 54 stocks, right? And now you got maybe around 20, let me scroll the list down, you got only 21 stocks. So first 16 stocks are in the list. I am scrolling the list down. So total 21 stocks are filtered. In all these 21 stocks, weekly zone is a part of the monthly zone, both together again part of the quarterly zone. Okay. So this is about a weekly time frame. Now let's move on to the next time frame, daily. Entry time frame daily, let us find the stocks where price closed inside the daily demand zone. 10 stocks are filtered. Let us identify high liquidity daily demand zones, if any, from this list. HDFC Life is having a daily high liquidity demand zone. This is a TCO demand zone. So we have only one high liquidity daily demand zone from this list. Look into Tata Power also. This is a newly created on the 6th, that is Friday. So yesterday only this zone layout was there. That means definitely this could be a high priority TCO zone. How can I say? Because yesterday only the layout was created. That layout might have violated a zone and trend might have been changed yesterday. If any retracement to that zone before it enters into a supply, its opposing supply zone, or if a new demand zone is created, again a new, before that, if it retraces back to this zone, probably it may give you good trade opportunity. But you should not forget the order flow should be available here. What is order flow? Fine-tuned 5-minute zones that I explained in lesson 20 checklist. Otherwise, there are higher chances this zone will be violated. That's why we never take any risk. But not taking trade at 5-minute zone. Please remember, you won't take trade at 5-minute zone. You may take it fine-tuned 15-minute zone. You may take it fine-tuned 75-minute zone. Or you may take a trade at the type 2 proximal line of this TCO zone. Why we are selecting these different options? For the risk management point of view. Why we are not taking trade at fine-tuned 5-minute zone? You may ask question. Because this is a daily zone, there are higher chances that the zone might test immediately, not entering into 5-minute zone, and it will move up. That possibility is there. So you don't want to miss the trade. Because this is a daily zone trade plan, entry zone is daily. That kind of plan you will be preparing. Or you will use this TCO zone as a ITF zone, because the trend will be based on ITF, right? So you will take an entry in fine-tuned 75-minute zone, either type 2 proximal or type 1 proximal, depending on the risk management. But 5 minutes order flow is only for the confirmation the zone is having institutional order flow. If institutional order flow is not there, there are higher chances zone will be violated. Lesson 16 concept. For that confirmation, we are looking for fine-tuned 5-minute zone. If it is a daily or 75 minutes HLQ zone strategy, intraday point of view, then you have to take your trade at the fine-tuned 5-minute zone. Because intraday point of view, 15 minutes or 75 minutes if you take trades, risk management may not permit. If risk management permits, still you can take a trade in 15 itself. But many times your risk management, risk reward, they may not be supporting you. Intraday traders, you can use Tata Power for your for HLQ. At present, this is a high liquidity HLQ zone. Even though TCO is low priority high liquidity zone, at present this is high liquidity, acting as a high liquidity zone. Why? Because this TCO zone is created, recently created. On Friday only it is created. And moreover, it is near to the zone. If it is not tested, this supply zone, assume it is not tested. If it is tested, this supply zone, then this Tata Power will act as a low priority high liquidity zone. At the time, you can't expect 80% success rate during the intraday. Still, you can take a trade if the 5 minutes order flow is there. If this supply zone is not tested, because sometimes what happens, TCO zone will go, one zone is violated, and next supply zone also it reached. That means price direction will change, and this supply zone will be pushing the prices down. Because of that, your TCO zone priority will be changed. If it is not tested, definitely, if prices are coming back before reaching the supply zone, this will be qualified as a high priority, high liquidity zone. We already discussed all these concepts in our training lesson TCO zone. I didn't remember the lesson number, maybe 25, lesson 25 or 24. One of these lessons you learned. Okay, but otherwise, this is a clear high liquidity zone. I mean high priority, high liquidity zone. You can also try on Tata Power also. Okay, this is about daily time frame, stocks near demand zones. Next, entry time frame daily. Let us find the stocks near daily supply zone. We got 7 stocks. Let's identify high liquidity supply zones from this list. Divi's Lab is having high liquidity supply zone. IEX is having. M&M Finance is having. Well, it's a TCO zone. Check whether it is high priority or low priority. If it is not tested the demand zone, it is still high priority. If this is tested and then prices are reversing back, then this is a low priority zone. Okay, anyway, we identified 3 high liquidity, high priority zones from this list. Okay, next, daily time frame. Price closed inside the daily demand zone, and this daily demand zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, daily time frame, minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Let's filter. We got 8 stocks. In these 8 daily demand zones, currently prices are closed. Okay, out of these 8, how many are having high priority? Not high priority, high probability. Set up supported zones based on EMA Confluence. Because these are all the daily demand zones, you need to look for daily demand zone having daily EMA Confluence. So in the EMA Confluence, at the daily time frame, I am enabling the filter daily demand zone having daily EMA Confluence. But this EMA Confluence should be used only in the trending but not sideways. So that's why in the trend calculations based on zone violation at a daily time frame, I am selecting trend as up or down. Then only this stock should be filtered. Otherwise, it should not be filtered. So we got 4 stocks. So in these 4 stocks, the daily trend is either up or down trend. See LTF. Because whichever the time frame you select, software by default assumes the time frame is LTF. That's why trend will be displayed on this LTF. But in your trade plan, you will be using this daily zone as either HTF zone or ITF zone. And then you prepare your own trade setups. Either bullish or bearish or counter trend trade setup, depending on the other parameters. Okay, in these 4 stocks, daily prices are closed, and also those daily demand zones are having daily EMA confluence. Okay, next for daily time frame, price closed inside the daily supply zone, and this daily supply zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count at a daily time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Let's filter. We got a big list. So many stocks are closed inside the daily supply zone. If these supply zones are violated and prices, then bullishness will be there in the market. Otherwise, again prices will be going down. But anyway, I'm scrolling the list down. So total 40 stocks are filtered where price closed inside the daily supply zone. Okay, now out of these 40, there could be high probability setup, daily supply zones might be available, that we can find based on the daily EMA confluence. Daily supply zones with daily EMA confluence. So in the EMA confluence parameter at daily time frame, I am enabling the filter daily supply zone having daily EMA confluence. And EMA confluence makes sense only in the trending market, not sideways. That's why in the trend parameter at a daily time frame, I am using up or down, but not sideways. Now let's filter the stocks. We got only 8 out of 40. We got only 8. See how our software is identifying by filtering so many stocks and finding the right setup related stocks. Now you can use these 8 daily supply zones as a HTF zone or ITF zone, and then you can plan your trade setups. If you are using HTF, your entry could be 15 minutes. If you are using this daily zone as a ITF, your entry could be 75 minutes. If you are using in the downtrend, this is using daily as a downtrend for ITF, then you will be using WIT bearish trade setups. Or if you are using uptrend, counter trend trade setups only you have to plan. That is possible only in the 6th one. See, this is how the data will be helping. You are getting powerful zones, but how well you are using them for preparing your trade plans is very, very important. I'm sure everybody may not be able to in a position to understand. Because I am providing you so many reports, some people will be using some reports, some other people, subscribers will be using some other reports. There is no rule that you should master in all these concepts at this point of time. Slowly you will understand once your experience grows. But especially price closed inside demand and supply zones, mainly they are useful for experienced people who are using supply demand zones for a long period. They will use these zones for preparing their own bullish or bearish trade setups. If they are aware of counter trend trade setups, they will also plan those trades. But you people who recently completed, directly you go to bullish and bearish trade setups for monthly, weekly, daily. Because you don't require to plan manually. Because all these things are already done by the software. But if you are using these zones, manually you will prepare. Why manually we have to prepare? Some satisfaction some people will be having. Okay, let me do my own analysis. But they can't they can't search 200 stocks. They can't search to find these stocks. At least some level they are taking help from the software. And the remaining work, because the list is reduced, they do their own work. These 8 stocks probably it will help them because they will be having sufficient time to analyze these stocks. This is the way people will do. Analyzing 8 stocks is simple compared to analyzing 200 stocks and finding these 8 stocks. But those who are using bullish and bearish trade setups, directly you are getting the final list. You just draw the zones, by applying the reverse engineering as the concept I explained in lesson 27. As per that, you quickly complete your analysis and you plan your trades. That way your time will be saved much better than doing manually analyzing the stocks and planning your trades. Okay. So this is about daily time frame. Next, 125 minutes time frame. Price closed inside the, not price closed, I'm sorry for my mistake. Stocks near 125 minutes demand zone. We got 9 stocks. Next, 125 minutes time frame. Stocks near 125 minutes supply zone. We got 3 stocks. Next time frame is 75 minutes. Entry time frame 75 minutes. Let us find the stocks near 75 minutes demand zone. We got a big list. So total 16 stocks are filtered. Let us identify high liquidity demand zones from this list. The first one, Aurobindo Pharma, is having high liquidity zone and not pierced. Good. Next, Bata India. Scrolling. And finally, UPL. So you identified 3 high liquidity 75 minutes demand zone from this list. Let me verify once again. This is the first one. This is the second one. And this is the third one. So we have identified 3 high liquidity 75 minute supply zones from this list. Okay, next, for 75 minutes time frame, let us find the stocks near 75 minute supply zone. We got 7 stocks. Let's identify high liquidity 75 minute supply zones. Anything available? No, we don't have any valid 75 minutes high liquidity supply zones. Second time also verified. No zones are available. Okay. Next time frame is 25 minutes. Stocks near 25 minutes demand zone. We got 7 stocks. Next 25 minutes time frame. Stocks near 25 minutes supply zone. We got 1 stock. Okay, next time frame is 15 minutes. Stocks near 15 minutes demand zone. We got 7 stocks. Let's check how many of these 15 minutes demand zones are having confluence with ITF time frame. ITF means 75 minutes. So that means 15 minutes demand zone confluence with 75 minutes demand zone. I'm enabling that filter. With this filter, out of those 7 stocks, we got 5 stocks. In these 5 demand zones, price is part of the 75. But you need to ignore the first one because it is a pierced zone, so not valid for trade setups. Always you have to look into the pierced column. Why it is displaying? Because we didn't add pierced filter. Why we didn't add? Because the list is small. Manually we can identify these zones. If it is 30 stocks, 40 stocks, searching every time will be difficult. We can add a filter and we can further reduce the list. But in these 5 stocks, okay. Sometimes pierced zones might be helpful to you in finding any traps also. Anyway, you are yet to learn that concept. In the coming weeks, you will be learning this training. Pierced zones. Probably this could be your next training lesson. Either this one or sideways trade setup. One of them I have to explain in your next training videos. Okay, next 15 minutes time frame. Price near 15 minute supply zone. No stocks are available. Next time frame is 5 minutes. So near 15 minutes, near 5 minutes demand zone, we got 8 stocks. Out of these 8 demand zones, how many are having ITF confluence? That is a 5 minutes demand zone with the 15 minutes demand zone confluence. I am enabling that filter. So with this filter, we got 5 stocks. Any pierced zones here? No. No pierced demand zones, 5 minutes demand zones. In all these 5 stocks, 5 minutes demand zone is part of the 15 minutes demand zone. That is what zone confluence. Okay, next for 5 minutes time frame. Near 5 minute supply zone. We got 4 stocks. 4 supply zones. Out of these 4, how many are having ITF supply zone confluence? That is 5 minute supply zone with 15 minute supply zone confluence. I am enabling that filter. We got only 1 stock, but that 1 stock is pierced, so it is not useful. Okay, this is about stocks near demand and supply zones. We also identified daily and 75 minutes high liquidity zones. The next set of reports about NIFTY and BANKNIFTY supply demand zone chain. Let me start with NIFTY. Nifty 50. And let's start with the monthly time frame. Generating monthly supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. This is monthly supply demand zone chain. Always look into the zone column to find high liquidity zones. Look into the pierced column to find the pierced zones. Always look into the LTF trend to find the trend of the current time frame you have selected. Apply these points for the rest of the reports in the supply demand zone chain. Okay, next weekly supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Next daily supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Next 125 minute supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Next 75 minute supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Next 25 minute supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Next 15 minute supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Next 5 minute supply demand zone chain for NIFTY. Because very few 5 minutes demand zones in this view. If you want more 5 minutes demand zone, I am scrolling the list down. So this is about NIFTY supply demand zone chain. Next we will generate BANKNIFTY supply demand zone chain. That is nothing but NIFTY Bank. Let's start with monthly time frame. Monthly supply demand zone chain for BANKNIFTY. Next weekly supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. Next, daily supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. Next, 125 minute supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. Next, 75 minute supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. Next, 25 minute supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. Next, 15 minute supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. Next, 5 minutes supply demand zone chain for Bank Nifty. So this is about Bank Nifty supply demand zone chain. So this is about Nifty and Bank Nifty. Next set of reports are about bullish and bearish trade setups for monthly, weekly and daily income trades. Let's start with bullish trade setup for monthly income trade. Entry time frame daily, entry zone demand zone. In bullish or bearish trade setup at entry time frame daily, I am selecting bullish. This daily demand zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count parameter at entry time frame daily, I am selecting minimum value 0, maximum value 0, because the report displays daily reports. The daily demand zones, they should not be pierced. And zone achievement should always be violated opposing zone. Minimum odd enhanced score should be 12. All three filters are applied to daily demand zone. Now let's filter the stocks. So we got good number of stocks. The first 18 stocks from this list. I am scrolling the list down. So all these 21 stocks are currently supporting bullish trade setup for monthly income trade. The entry time frames are, entry zones are daily demand zones. That means you should plan your trade in these daily demand zones. But out of these 21, there could be still even more high probability supported daily demand zones might be available. So how to filter them? So first filter we will use based on LTF and ITF demand zone confluence as per the concept I explained in lesson 21. First let's filter. Demand zone confluence, daily LTF, weekly ITF. So I am using the filter daily demand zone with weekly demand zone confluence. I enable the filter. With this filter, out of 21 stocks, we got 15 stocks. In all these 15 stocks, these daily demand zones, all these are all daily demand zones. So these daily demand zones are part of the weekly demand zone. Part of the weekly means overlapped with weekly zone. That is what zone confluence. But this is LTF and ITF, zone confluence. So these are the high probability setup zones because of based on LTF and ITF. Still, these 15 stocks might be having even more high probability trade setup supported zones. That is based on the EMA confluence as per the concept you learned in lesson 27. Because this ITF is weekly, because the daily zone, LTF is daily, the daily zone is a part of the weekly zone, that is ITF zone, and this ITF zone is having uptrend, and that is the reason why if you look for ITF zone with ITF EMA confluence, it is even more high probability trade setup. What is ITF zone? Weekly zone. So weekly zone with weekly EMA confluence. For that we have to use the parameter EMA confluence parameter. In this parameter at weekly time frame, I am enabling the filter weekly demand zone having weekly EMA confluence, because the daily zone is part of the weekly zone. So we are using weekly zone with weekly EMA confluence, and also trend is uptrend in all the stocks. So now we got 9 stocks. These 9 stocks are even more high probability trade setup related zones, these demand zones. If prices are nearing to the daily demand zones, you can plan the trades at the time. Okay, this is about bullish trade setup based on LTF and ITF for monthly income trade. Next filter is based on LTF, ITF and even HTF. That is a daily, weekly and monthly demand zone confluence. So I am removing this EMA filter because this is for LTF, ITF. Now we are focusing on LTF, ITF and HTF. So first we need to set LTF, ITF, HTF demand zone confluence. 3 filters we need to set. First filter is already enabled, that is a daily demand zone with confluence with weekly demand zone. Next filter is daily demand zone confluence with monthly demand zone. And third filter is weekly demand zone confluence with monthly demand zone. With all the 3 filters, LTF, ITF, HTF demand zone confluence, we got only one stock. In this MCX stock, this is the daily zone, all-time high daily demand zone. This is part of the weekly demand zone. Both this daily and weekly together part of the monthly demand zone. And if that monthly demand zone is having monthly EMA confluence, it is even more high probability trade setup supported stock. Let's verify. In the EMA confluence at monthly time frame, because the daily zone together with weekly zone are part of the monthly zone. So monthly demand zone with monthly EMA confluence, as per the concept you learned in your lesson 27. We did not get this stock. That means the stock is not having EMA confluence, but the stock is having only zone confluence, LTF, ITF, HTF. That's a high probability setup. But EMA confluence should have been, if it could have been there, it could have been even more high probability trade setup. But that is missing. Okay, this is about monthly income trade bullish trade setup. Next, monthly income trade bearish trade setup. Entry time frame daily, entry zone is supply zone. In bullish or bearish trade setup, at entry time frame daily, I am selecting bearish. This daily supply zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, at a daily time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. That means daily supply zone should not be pierced. And zone achievement should always be violated opposing zone. Minimum odd enhancer score 12. All 3 filters are applied to daily supply zone. Now let's filter the stocks. We got 4 stocks. Currently these 4 stocks are supporting bearish trade setup for monthly income trade. Entry zones are daily supply zones. That means you should plan trades only in the daily supply zones, not in the demand zones. Okay. Out of these 4 daily supply zones, there could be some high probability setup supported stocks might be available. We need to find them. So first filter is based on LTF and ITF supply zone confluence. Let's enable that filter. LTF, ITF means daily supply zone with weekly supply zone confluence. I enable the filter, and the filter is applied to those 4 stocks. Out of those 4, all 4 are filtered. That means in all these 4 stocks, these daily supply zones are part of the weekly supply zone. And the weekly trend is down in all the 4 stocks. Weekly means ITF time frame. So if weekly supply zone is having weekly EMA confluence, it is even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Let's find them, because daily is part of weekly. So we are looking for weekly EMA confluence on weekly supply zones. So weekly supply zone with weekly EMA confluence filter is enabled, and this filter is applied to those 4 stocks. Out of 4, we got 2 stocks. And in both these stocks, the daily supply zone is part of the weekly supply zone, and the weekly supply zone is having weekly EMA Confluence. So lesson 27, you learn these concepts. Okay, these two are even more high probability setup supported supply zones. Okay, next filter is about LTF, ITF and HTF supply zone confluence. I am removing this EMA filter. In the supply zone confluence, 3 filters we need to add. First filter is already enabled, that is daily with weekly. Second filter is a daily supply zone with monthly supply zone confluence. Third filter is weekly supply zone with monthly supply zone confluence. With all the 3 filters, LTF, ITF, HTF supply zone confluence, we got only one stock. If this stock is having, the supply zone is having monthly EMA confluence, it is even more high probability trade setup supported stock. Let's verify. In the EMA confluence at monthly time frame, why monthly? Because daily and weekly together part of the monthly zone. So monthly supply zone is having monthly EMA confluence, and also monthly trend is down. That's why we selected. Yes, this is also having EMA confluence, monthly EMA. It is even more high probability trade setup, bearish trade setup stock for monthly income trade. Okay, this is about bearish trade setup for monthly income trade. Next, let us look for bullish trade setup for weekly income trade. Earlier is monthly income trade, now weekly income trade. Bullish trade setup. Entry time frame is 75 minutes. Entry zone is a demand zone, bullish trade setup. In bullish or bearish trade setup at 75 minutes time frame, I am selecting bullish. And this 75 minutes demand zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count at 75 minutes time frame, I am selecting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. That means 75 minutes demand zone is not pierced. Zone achievement, violated opposing zone. Minimum odd enhancer score 12. All 3 filters are applied to 75 minutes demand zone. Now let's filter the stocks. 14 stocks are filtered. Currently these 14 stocks are supporting bullish trade setup for weekly income trade. The entry zones are 75 minutes demand zones. That means you should plan trades in these 75 minutes demand zones. But out of these 75 minutes demand zones, there could be some high probability trade setup supported zones might be available. We need to find them. How to find? By using, first filter is by using LTF and ITF demand zone confluence. LTF is 75 minutes. ITF is daily. So we should look for 75 minutes demand zone confluence with daily demand zone confluence. I am enabling this filter. So with this filter, we got 10 stocks. In all these 10 stocks, 75 minutes demand zone is part of the daily demand zone. Daily is ITF. And ITF trend is up in all these stocks. 75 minute zone is also part of the daily zone. If this daily zone is having daily EMA confluence, they are even more high probability trade setup supported demand zones. Let's verify. In the EMA confluence at a daily time frame, the daily demand zone having daily EMA confluence, with this filter we got 8 stocks. All these 8 are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks, because all these daily demand zones are having daily EMA confluence. Okay, next let us look for LTF, ITF, HTF demand zone confluence. With all the 3 filters, I am removing this EMA filter. Now in the demand zone confluence, 3 filters we have to set. First one is already enabled. That is 75 demand zone with daily demand zone. Second filter is 75 minutes demand zone confluence with weekly demand zone confluence. Third one is daily demand zone confluence with weekly demand zone confluence. With all the 3 filters, LTF, ITF, HTF, demand zone confluence, we got 7 stocks. In all these 7 stocks, the entry time frame 75 minutes demand zone is part of the daily demand zone. Both together again part of the weekly demand zone. And weekly trend is up in all these stocks except few, 1, 2, 3 stocks out of 7. That means remaining 4. The uptrend stocks are having a weekly EMA Confluence. They are even more high probability trade setup stocks. So let's verify. In the EMA Confluence, weekly time frame, because 75 minutes entry zone together with daily zone, part of the weekly zone. That's why weekly zone having weekly EMA Confluence. Enable the filter, but the trend should not be sideways, it should be only uptrend. That's why in the trend zone violation at weekly I am selecting uptrend, but not sideways. We got 3 stocks. In all the 3 stocks weekly trend is up, and in all the 3 stocks weekly demand zones are having weekly EMA Confluence. In all the 3 stocks 75 minutes entry zone together with the daily zone is part of the weekly zone. That is what Zone Confluence. That's why these 3 are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Okay, next let us look for bearish trade setup, weekly income trade, entry time frame 75 minutes, entry zone supply zone. In bullish or bearish trade setup, all of a sudden my mind is struck up. Okay, in bullish or bearish trade setup at entry time frame 75 minutes, I am selecting bearish. This 75 minute supply zone should not be pierced. So that's why in the pierced count at 75 minutes time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. That means 75 minute supply zone should not be pierced. And zone achievement violated opposing zone. Minimum odd enhancer score 12. All 3 filters are applied to 75 minute supply zone. Now let's filter the stocks. We got 6 stocks. All these 6 stocks are currently supporting bearish trade setup for weekly income trade. And entry zones are 75 minute supply zones. That means you should prepare your trade plans only on the 75 minute supply zones. Out of these 6 75 minute supply zones, there could be some high probability setup supported stocks might be available. Let's filter them. So first filter is LTF and ITF supply zone confluence. So in the supply zone confluence, 75 minute supply zone with daily supply zone confluence filter is enabled. With this filter, out of 7 we got 5 stocks. In these 5 stocks, the 75 minute supply zones are part of the daily supply zone. And the daily supply zone, the daily trend is a downtrend. Daily means ITF. And if these daily zones are having daily EMA confluence, there could be even more high probability trade setup. Let's verify. In the EMA confluence at a daily time frame, why daily? Because the entry time frame 75 minute supply zone is part of the daily supply zone. That's why daily supply zone we are looking for daily EMA confluence. That is what you learned in lesson 27. Let's filter. So no stocks are available. The EMA confluence daily supply zone with daily EMA confluence is not supported. Okay, fine, no issues. Let's remove this EMA confluence. Now let's look for LTF, ITF, HTF supply zone confluence. So 3 filters we need to set. First filter is already enabled. That is 75 minutes with daily supply zone confluence. Next 75 minute supply zone with weekly supply zone confluence. And daily supply zone with weekly supply zone confluence. With all the 3 filters, LTF, ITF, HTF, supply zone confluence, we got 3 stocks. In all the 3 stocks, the daily supply zone, 75 minute supply zone is part of the daily 75 and daily together are part of the weekly supply zone. And weekly trend is down in only one stock. If this is having weekly EMA confluence, it is even more high probability setup supported stock. Let's verify. In the EMA confluence weekly time frame, weekly supply zone having weekly EMA Confluence. We got all the three, but sideways you need to ignore. That's why if you want, you can also add filter weekly time frame only downtrend stocks, because this is bearish trade setup. So you got one stock. So it is a high probability trade setup supported supply zone, a 75-minute supply zone. Okay. Next, let us look for bullish trade setup for daily income trade. For daily income trade, entry time frame 15 minutes, entry zone demand zone. In bullish or bearish trade setup at 15 minutes, I am selecting bullish. This 15 minutes demand zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count at 15 minutes time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Zone achievement violated opposing zone. Minimum odd enhancer score is 12. All three filters are applied to 15 minutes demand zone. Let's filter. We got a very big list. These are the first 16 stocks. I am scrolling the list down. So total 28 stocks are filtered. All these 28 stocks are supporting bullish trade setup for daily income trade. Entry zones are 15 minutes demand zones. So you need to plan your trades in these 15 minutes demand zone for these 28 stocks. But out of these 28, there could be some high probability setup supported zones might be available. So let's filter them. First filter is based on LTF and ITF demand zone confluence. That means 15 minutes demand zone should be part of this 75 minutes demand zone. So in the demand zone confluence, I am enabling the filter 15 minutes demand zone with 75 minutes demand zone confluence. With this filter, out of 28, we got again big list. These are the first 16 stocks. I am scrolling the list down. So total 23 stocks are filtered out of 28. So that means in all these 23 stocks, these 75 minutes entry demand zones are part of the sorry for my mistake. These 15 minutes entry demand zones are part of this 75 minutes demand zone. And 75 minutes trend is a uptrend in all these stocks because it is bullish trade setup. ITF is 75 minutes. So that's why if any of these 75 minute zones are having daily EMA confluence, they could be even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Let us filter them. So in the EMA confluence at 75 minutes time frame. Why 75 minutes time frame? Because 15 minutes entry demand zone is part of the 75 minutes demand zone. That's why we are looking for 75 minutes demand zone with daily EMA confluence. With this filter, out of 23, we got only 5 stocks. See how all of a sudden the list is reduced. And these 5 stocks are even more high probability trade setups, supported stocks. And some of these demand zones are already even high liquidity demand zones. These are 15 minutes demand zones. Because the 15 minutes is the entry time frame. Okay, these 5 stocks are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Okay, next let us look for LTF, ITF and HTF zone confluence, demand zone confluence. I am removing this EMA filter. So in the demand zone confluence, we need to set 3 filters. One filter is already enabled, that is 15 minutes demand zone with 75 minutes demand zone confluence. Second filter is 15 minutes demand zone confluence with weekly demand zone, and 75 minutes demand zone confluence with weekly demand zone. With all the 3 filters, LTF, ITF, HTF demand zone confluence, we got 5 stocks. In all these 5 stocks, the 15 minutes, all these are all 15 minutes entry zones, the demand zones. In all these 15 minutes demand zones are part of the 75 minutes demand zone. Again, both together part of the daily demand zone. And in the daily time frame, 3 stocks are having uptrend. If any of these 3 stocks are having daily EMA confluence, they are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Let us find them. So in the EMA confluence at a daily time frame, why daily? Because 15 minutes entry zone is part of the 75 minute zone, both together again part of the daily zone. That's why the daily demand zone having daily EMA confluence we are verifying. With this filter, we got 3 stocks. In all the 3, the HTF trend is uptrend. Excellent. HTF is a daily trend is uptrend, and these daily zones are having daily EMA confluence. Our entry time frame 15 minute zone is part of the daily zone. Of course, it is part of the daily zone together with 75 minute zone, because the daily is part of 75. Both together is part of the daily zone. So these 3 are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Okay, this is about bullish trade setup for daily income trade. Entry zones are 15 minutes demand zones. Okay, next let us look for bearish trade setup for daily income trade. So entry time frame is 15 minutes. Entry zone is supply zone. In bullish or bearish trade setup, at 15 minutes entry time frame, I am selecting bearish. These 15 minute supply zone should not be pierced. So in the pierced count, at 15 minutes time frame, I am setting minimum value 0, maximum value 0. Zone achievement should be violated opposing zone. Minimum odd enhancer score should be 12. All 3 filters are applied to 15 minute supply zone. Now let's filter the stocks. We got 4 stocks. And these 4 stocks are currently supporting bearish trade setup for daily income trade. And entry zones are 15 minute supply zones. You should plan trades only in the 15 minute supply zones. Okay, out of these 4 15 minute supply zones, there could be some high probability setup supported stocks might be available. We need to filter them. First filter is based on LTF and ITF supply zone confluence. That is 15 minute supply zone with 75 minute supply zone confluence. I am enabling that filter. With this filter, out of 4, we got all 4 stocks. That means in all these 4 stocks, these 15 minute supply zones are part of the 75 minute supply zone. Okay, the 75 minutes trend is a downtrend. 75 minutes means ITF trend. Because trend is down, if any of these 75 minute supply zones are having daily EMA confluence, they are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. Let's filter them. In the EMA confluence, at 75 minutes time frame, 75 minute supply zone having daily EMA confluence, because 15 minute supply zone is part of the daily supply, 15 minute supply zone is part of the 75 minute supply zone. That's why we are looking for 75 minute supply zone with daily EMA confluence as per the concepts learned in lesson 27. Now let's filter the stocks. We got 1 stock. This is even more high probability trade setup supported stocks based on LTF and ITF supply zone confluence. Next, let us look for LTF, ITF and HTF supply zone confluence. So I am removing this EMA filter. Earlier we got 4 stocks. Out of 4, how many will have LTF, ITF, HTF supply zone confluence? Already 1 filter is enabled, 15 minute supply zone with 75 minute supply zone confluence. Next filter is 15-minute supply zone with weekly, something mistake. Sorry, 15-minute supply zone with daily supply zone confluence, because daily is HTF. And 75-minute supply zone with daily supply zone confluence. With all the three filters, LTF, ITF, HTF, supply zone confluence, we got all 4 stocks. That means in all these 4 stocks, daily zone, 15 minutes entry supply zone is part of the 75-minute supply zone. Both together again part of the daily supply zone. In the daily, except 4, remaining all are having a downtrend. So eliminate the 4th one, and in the remaining 3, the HTF. If the daily zone is having daily EMA Confluence, they are even more high probability trade setup supported stocks. So let's verify. In the EMA Confluence, at a daily time frame, daily supply zone having daily EMA Confluence filter is enabled. And in the trend at a daily time frame, I need to select only downtrend supported stocks, not sideways. So with this filter, we got one stock, JSW Energy. So this supply zone is even more high probability trade setup supported stock, and also it is high liquidity zone, 15 minutes high liquidity zone, because it is a 15 minutes supply zone. So this is about bearish trade setup for daily income trade, LTF, ITF, HTF, Zone Confluence with the EMA Confluence. Okay, in the final report, let us generate stop buffers based on daily ATR. First 17 in this list are indices, remaining all are equity stocks. I am scrolling the list down. Whichever the stock you want to refer, there you please pause the video and then you can proceed further. I am scrolling the list down. So this is the end of the report. Hope this information will be useful to you for your further study and analysis. Let's all meet again in our next video. Thank you.